Today, we are diving deep into a massive political storm that has absolutely captivated India. At the heart of it all, a serious accusation of voter manipulation, a furious response from a major constitutional body, and a battle over the very soul of the democratic process. Okay, so this is really the core of the whole thing. It's a classic case of an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. On one side, you have a major political leader, Rahul Gandhi, alleging widespread fraud. And on the other, you have the very institution in charge of the elections demanding hard proof, or a public apology. It is a massive standoff. So let's start with the moment that really lit the fuse. This is when the Election Commission, or the EC, issued a direct and very public challenge to Rahul Gandhi, turning what was a political claim into a formal, high-stakes showdown. This was the opening shot, and it was a big one. On August 17th, the chief election commissioner didn't just deny the vote chori or vote theft claim. He framed it as a full-blown attack on the entire democratic system. He called it an insult to every single voter and all the people who worked tirelessly to run the elections.
Now, the commission didn't just fire back with words. No, they threw down a gauntlet. They laid out a clear, time-bound ultimatum with very specific actions. It was basically them saying, you have 7 days. Either put up legally binding evidence or you publicly take it all back.
And this is where it gets really interesting from a legal perspective. The Election Commission isn't just making this up. They're standing on a specific rule. By pointing to this section, the EC is sending a clear message. Look, we have a formal process for these kinds of claims, and you have to follow it. This isn't just politics. Well, as you can probably guess, this ultimatum just ignited an absolute political firestorm. What started as a formal demand very quickly spiraled into this huge public battle, fought out in press conferences and, of course, all over social media. The BJP's response was swift and sharp. The party president, JP Nadda, put out this tweet, which translates to, "I am still standing there." It was a really pointed, almost sarcastic jab, meant to frame Gandhi's accusation as just the latest in a long line of him attacking India's court institutions. And the attack didn't stop with just one tweet. The BJP rolled out a full-on counter-offensive. Their strategy was to completely reframe the whole debate. They argued this wasn't a genuine concern about fraud at all, but a manufactured crisis, a scripted PR exercise designed to undermine public trust just for political points. And then, something happened that played right into the BJP's narrative. A key witness from Gandhi's own campaign publicly took back her initial claim. This was a critical moment. It handed the BJP some powerful ammunition, allowing them to argue that the opposition's entire case was built on a foundation of sand. Okay, so you've got all this intense pressure piling on. How did Rahul Gandhi and the opposition respond? Did they back down? Not a chance. Instead, they flipped the script and tried to change the terms of the debate completely. Gandhi just flat out rejected the EC's demand for a sworn affidavit. His argument was pretty bold. He said his most important declaration, his real oath, was the one he took inside Parliament. He was essentially positioning his speech in Parliament as a higher form of truth than a legal document filed with the Commission. And this pushback wasn't just coming from Gandhi. Across the country, other opposition leaders jumped in and broadened the accusation. Leaders like Adhikar in Karnataka were claiming the EC was no longer a neutral referee, but was actively acting like an agent of the BJP, protecting the ruling party and trying to silence anyone who spoke out. So this is the impasse. You see the fundamental disconnect, right? The Election Commission is demanding specific legal proof for a very specific claim. But in response, Gandhi's side is demanding broad institutional transparency just to begin investigating. They're not even speaking the same language. All right, let's step back for a second and look at the bigger picture here, because this isn't just about one politician versus one commission. This whole conflict has become a fundamental test of India's democratic machinery and, crucially, the public's trust in it. The central question that everybody is now asking is whether the Election Commission is, and just as importantly, is perceived to be, an impartial referee. Every single move the EC makes in this case is being put under a microscope, scrutinized for any sign of bias. And there's some really important context for all of this. Back in 2023, a new law was passed that changed how election commissioners are appointed. Now, critics argue that this law actually shields the commission from accountability, which makes this current test of its neutrality more critical than ever before.
And that leads you to ask a pretty fundamental question about fairness. Is the commission just applying a standard procedure here that any politician would have to face? Or is this a case of selective enforcement, of them specifically targeting a prominent voice of dissent?
You know, this really gets to the philosophical heart of the divide. The EC and the BJP argue they are protecting the sanctity of elections from baseless attacks. But the opposition argues that the only way to truly protect these institutions is through transparency and by holding them accountable to public scrutiny.
So the entire conflict really boils down to this one provocative question. Is this a genuine struggle for electoral transparency, or is it a raw battle for institutional control? As both sides dig their heels in deeper, the answer isn't just going to decide this one standoff. It could very well shape the public's trust in Indian democracy for years to come.